Okay, so this is just a little discussion and kind of mini lesson on the Moonlight Sonata by Beethoven, and this is Tárrega's transcription. And I've made the sheet music available for free off the website, so you can see a link in the YouTube section for that. So the notation version as a PDF is just free, just click on download. And you can also buy the tablature if you want to, if you need that help. So, it's a pretty long piece, so I don't think I'll go through the whole thing. I'm just going to talk about a few different sections, and we'll just have like a little bit of a discussion on it so that when you're approaching the piece, maybe you'll know a little bit more exactly how you want to approach it. So first thing to keep in mind is that this is indeed a piano work, right? This is originally for piano or for keyboard, and this is a transcription by Tárrega. And Tárrega is quite later than Beethoven, so the piece is already popularized by then, and Tárrega decided to make his own transcription of it and his own arrangement of it. And then I've kept pretty darn close to the Tárrega. There's some parts that I really want to change. I'll point out a part right at the very beginning that I wanted to change, but I decided to stay more with Tárrega because as I went through the piece, I saw lots of things I might want to change, and it was diving too far away from Tárrega. So I decided to just do Tárrega's arrangement. And there's one or two parts I refingered, but besides that, a couple of small refingerings, I changed very little. And I actually kept most of his fingerings because I think he wanted certain musical results. So you all know the piece. Starts. And let's just talk about that little part there. A couple of things. First thing, right off the bat, you're going to notice like some of the chords are pretty big. And there's some possibilities to navigate these chords that I want to talk about. The first chord, this D minor chord with a C in the bass, going from bar 2 to bar 3. Beautiful chord, but getting from here into this chord is pretty tough. One possible solution is that you could hinge bar. It's not perfect, but it would help on occasion. So a lot of looking at what comes next and just making decisions based on that. So if there's a tricky chord to get into, sometimes you can prepare your hand to make sure that you are indeed able to switch from one chord to the next in a legato way. Sometimes it's not going to be possible though. So for example, in bar 3, you're barring the first fret. It's not going to be that possible to switch from this chord to that chord in a super legato fashion. So my recommendation is just slowing it really down and listening to the final note in the arpeggio, and then getting the next bass note and just really like close your eyes and clearly listen to the sound of that last note connecting to the very first note of the next chord. Sometimes in guitar, it's very tempting to just like clamp down on a chord and then clamp down on another chord, making it very difficult. But if we finesse it a little bit by reaching out that third finger, now that third finger needs to play with the bar as well, but there's something about just paying extra attention to it. Sorry, that allows you to kind of just connect it a little bit more, and some of the resonance from the instrument, the soundboard vibrating, will help connect those two chords. You can kind of create the illusion of legato. And also just keep in mind too that when I switched chords there, I grabbed only part of the bar and then snuck my second finger in after the fact. I mean, a great way to practice it, just to practice it, would be to like do block chords. Just get really comfortable switching from one chord to the next. That'd be great, right? But when push comes to shove and you're trying to be really legato, you gotta just get the notes that come first and then get the other ones after the fact. All this jumping around. Because it's a beautiful sound on the guitar, especially in that register with the modern instrument. So a couple of things, just other things to think about is that with a little bit of rubato in this piece, I mean, particularly because it's Tárrega's arrangement, he probably used quite a bit of rubato, maybe more than Beethoven might have actually wanted you to use. But I mean, what can you do? A little bit of rubato will make it very musical and very romantic, and help you navigate those chords, right? Now let's just talk about some of the difference between like what Tárrega was doing and some other options that you have. So in this first part here, so you could see like he goes up to this position here. Sorry. And then uses that open string to try to create the continual effect of cross stringing the whole time. Or as like on the piano, a very legato, or with the pedal down if it's a modern performance. So the thing about that open string is it just doesn't, it sounds a little bit out of place next to these other upper position fretted notes. So just be careful that you're getting a nice sound. Avoid really bright sounds. So whenever you're doing something that is clearly, it's not ideal, use the right hand to try to save the situation, so to speak. So in bar 6, really warm up that E and don't play it too loud because those open E's pop. Otherwise, you're going to get, it's kind of like very brightish sound. It's such a small little string at the very top of the guitar. But it's not the highest note in the register. That open E in bar 6 is in the middle of the arpeggio. It's the G that's on top. But on a thicker string, way up here, it's going to sound way warmer than the open string. So you got to really finesse it. You could play it in other places. I mean, you could play this all in lower position. I guess you'd go like this. There'll be lots of kind of funny jumping around. I think Tárrega was just trying to avoid that and keep that cross-stringing situation happening by going into upper positions. But like I said, really good solutions by Tárrega, but I think you just have to be very careful that you're correcting the sound so it doesn't sound weird. Because that's what it would sound like. If any pianist heard you play this on guitar, they'd immediately just say like, that sounds weird. That's a weird thing that you're doing. And our response would be like, that's just the guitar. But we have to do more than that. We have to actually like use our right hand to make sure that we are smoothing out the situation so it sounds musically correct, right? Let me just jump ahead a little bit. I mean, there's so many similar situations just like the one I just showed you. But I think all the fingering solutions are pretty good by Tárrega, and there was a couple where I thought maybe I had a slightly easier solution, so you can judge that. There's even one spot where I put some brackets around one or two notes, and the brackets are really just indicating that you can leave that note out. So for example, in bar 26 going into 27, there's this section, sorry. And you have to go way up into the 10th position. So it's a big shift from there to there while you're holding all these beautiful chords. But I put brackets around the first 10, so I mean, just leave it out. because it's not that noticeable. You're going along like this. Just play the open, and then throw that 10th fret 3rd string in the second time through. I know that seems like a cop-out, but really, I mean, this music has already been reduced so much from the piano version that a little bit more reduction is not going to hurt it that much. And I'm not mocking the piece. I think it's a good arrangement, but if you got to do certain things to make sure it sounds good. And if you think you can get that shift, great, do it. But if you think it's actually disrupting the musical phrasing, you got to get rid of it. You got to do what's best for the music, right? And best for the listener. So that's one little example, and hopefully those kinds of things don't come up very often in the piece where you have to edit it that much. Edit it further than Tárrega has already edited. There was one part that was a pretty tricky fingering situation, and I came up with something that I thought musically kind of works. Maybe you'll come up with better solutions yourself, but this is bar 37 and 38. We just kind of run out of strings. Essentially, the notes go G, C sharp, B flats. You could do C sharp, G, but then there's like an E. With all the B flats and all of the messing around with low notes, I came up with this. It's similar to Tárrega's fingering, but he didn't finger everything, so it was unclear what he wanted exactly. I do a shift. Tárrega does mention that shift. And then it's important that you hold these notes. So that's pretty crazy, right? You're holding these notes and then you have to use your 4th finger to kind of like, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but I'll bring it in closer, but I'm just moving my 4th finger back and forth like this. It's kind of silly, but I just don't want to do this. I don't want to play. I just don't really like the sound of letting those notes go. And then continuing it just a number of times. So that's one possible solution. There's probably others that you could do. If it's really bothering you and you're unable to do that nicely, just let go of the bass note. I mean, it's not the end of the world. You'll be going through. You know, you could just let go of it after 1 more 8th note, and then as soon as you play the upper A, you could just mute it out so that it's rhythmically muted on the beat. And then you won't have to do that silly stretch and 4th finger back and forth. So that was just one of my solutions to things, but you can edit that if you feel it's necessary. Let's see. Bar 47, 48, 49. So bar 49, I decided to go way up here. Just to kind of keep a number of those things all in one place and avoid awkward shifts. It sounds a little funny, it's a little bit muddy. Especially with that open string in there. So again, just try to warm that open string up. I probably could warm it up. So again, it's just one of those situations like I talked about before. You just have to make sure that open string isn't too obnoxious in there and smooth it out. So besides that, I don't think there's too much else I really want to talk about. I think it's pretty straightforward. A lot of the stuff at the end, you have to navigate some upper position stuff. But it's not that big of a deal just because most of the open strings, most of the basses are open strings. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. So I hope that those couple of ideas just kind of guide you through this piece. All the fingering, I trust all the fingering in the piece, and the tab is there for you if you really need it. So dive right into it. There are easier arrangements of Moonlight Sonata online that are kind of just like by the average guitarist and whatnot. There's so many of those. I don't really have an interest in making my own transcription of the Moonlight Sonata, so I went with Tárrega's. And in a way, it's kind of authentic Romantic era music. You know, Beethoven's late classical, early Romantic. Tárrega's definitely he dies in 1909, so he's much later. But nevertheless, it's cool that it's just part of the guitar heritage, and definitely worth looking at if you're going to make a transcription of it. And I think it's a really good piece. There's just a few spots you have to be very careful when you're practicing it. So I would definitely put this in the later intermediate to the early advanced, if not just right in the advanced, just because of some of the difficult chord changes. So I hope you enjoyed the piece, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thanks.